chiquillos. Oye, no voy a gritar mucho porque hay gente durmiendo acá. Buenos días, buenas madrugadas. Aquí en Chile ya son casi las 3 de la mañana. Y vamos a comenzar con la primera actividad, que es cómo usar un diseño para reducir la toxicidad en el juego, en un juego en línea. Entonces van a hablar de forma general. Y después de eso se viene el concierto comunitario. Así que por lo menos ahora me voy a mutear ya, y nos vemos en el juego y en la transmisión. Logré dormir aunque sea 1 hora y media. Así que tengo mucho sueño. ¿Qué actividades no van a estar? Todas las que vimos los días anteriores. Esto del SkyFest solamente era por 3 días. O sea, el ir a Edén, ver bosque y Isla del Amanecer, eso ya no van a estar, esas actividades ya no van a estar. Así que eso.
Today's talk is called Designing to Reduce Online Toxicity. When you think about online toxicity these days, you don't even think about gaming anymore. It's almost like anything on the internet, anything in the social media apps. It's like these unwanted attention or harmful attention to you, or they are coming at you either in the form of words, voices, and all kinds of things that the internet isn't a safe place anymore. And when it comes to gaming, there is certain stigma about what online gaming toxicity is. I was just searching on the internet recently on what is a toxic gaming community, and someone actually ranked them and gave all kinds of context about what it represents today's toxicity in the games. But I really want to talk about the love we have towards games. I'm sure everyone here in the conference chooses to pursue game as a career because we love games. And when we grow up, the game really made our lives better. I find my childhood friends through games. I find my career through games. And, and I was able to connect with players, by making games. So I have so much to thank for the game. But when I tell people outside the game industry that we make games, their first reaction to gaming industry is not very positive. And in fact, if you really think about what online game is, there's a stigma. I think a lot of this has to do with the fact most of the video games, in the first 30 years of the history of games, they're focusing on simulating physics. And the maximum feedback you can get from a physics simulation is destruction. And a lot of the successful franchise really sell people on this power fantasy. If I'm a student in school, I'm not free. I cannot drive. I cannot go out to places. And games fulfill that fantasy quite well. The problem is when most of the video games is about power fantasies, you would expect people will have a civil and gentle interactions like on the street. But most of the video game interactions you would run into is this, right? That's the maximum feedback you could get from a physics simulation of two people. And because of that, there is this competitive emotion that leads to somewhat of antisocial behaviors, well known as harassment. If you grew up, you know what harassment is. But that's not how we are only capable of as gamers, because Star Wars has taught us that we are capable of both good and evil as humanity. There's many sides of what we are. As game developers, it's more important about who do we want to highlight of these colors of humanity. Like, what do we want to highlight through our game design? And for me, I still feel, game is the ultimate art form. It's supposed to be a medium that to be respected, just like cinema, music, literature. And then why are we still seen as, subpar than this classic medium? I use this chart quite a lot, so bear with me. Old concept. This is emotional mapping of the demographics within the film industry. How at different age, masculine audience and feminine audience prefer different genres. The closer it is towards those demographics, the more they prefer those content. And there is, when I first came to America, that was early 2000. At that time, the game industry is very small. There was no mobile phones. And there's console of young male audience, and then there's casual of PC, mostly middle-aged women. That was pretty much it. The industry is very small. And they're serving a subgroup of the entire population, and so most people would refer these people as gamers. But today, ever since 20 years ago when I come to America, the game industry evolved so much. Console industry has grown quite a lot because the gamers grow older. They are 20 years older than when I first came in. And you start to see more serious emotions being, kind of dealt with in the console industry. And, when we started TGC, that was back in 2004, 2005, we made a game called Cloud. We're trying to explore the idea, can video games be art? At the time, there's a famous saying of, like, can video game make you cry? If video game make you cry, then it is art. But at the time, there wasn't any games that made people cry. So when we made Cloud, we actually managed to, this is a student game back then, you know, made by 4 or 5 students with no engine. There was no Unity and Unreal back then. And it's a little game about a kid flying in the sky and playing with the clouds. But what happened is we have received so many letters from our player that they say they cried for the game, which at the time I was very surprised. And they encouraged us to start this company to make more games that could touch people and show the society that games are not just competitions and killing, and it could be something emotional, and it could potentially make your life better. And that was really what kind of pushed us to start a company. And we started our first 3 games with PlayStation. And we were very, very small when we started. We only had 4 people. And we were trying to tackle some of the most challenging subjects in the gaming medium. We were trying to see if we can make a video game haiku that feels tranquility when everybody was pushing for geometry wars, you know, Xbox Live Arcade. It's all about like the excitement. And then we try to explore, can video games be a poetry that allows you to discover a feeling of healing rather than destroying. And then when we make our very first online game, which is Journey, we're trying to see if they can connect people emotionally rather than having people competing with each other. And so each of the game we make, we're expanding in terms of its emotional complexity. Flower added more adventure and suspense into the game compared to Flow. Journey added more drama. You know, there's a kind of rise and fall of a transformation of your player character. And the emotional range, as the emotional range expand, each of the game managed to reach to a different group of players. And with Journey particularly, there's this cross-section here. These are these are older male players, above 35 years old. And they happen to be journalists and award judges. So Journey did pretty well with the awards. But we see a lot of comments on the internet saying, this is the most boring game. We don't get what's the fuss about this thing. This is just a walking simulator. Because they are from younger male players, and they don't necessarily understand the appeal of drama. But it's all right. Meanwhile, in the past decade, that's Journey shipped in 2012, so it's 12 years ago. In the past decade, the biggest thing happened is outside the console and PC hardcore gaming industry, we had the social media and then now the mobile platform. All of a sudden, you know, when we made Journey, we felt like we really leave an impact to make the industry shifting towards making more artistic content. You can kind of see a lot of the Sony AAA games start to shift towards that direction. But meanwhile, 10 times more people start playing games, and they have no idea what's going on the PlayStation. And their impression of games is, you know, Angry Bird. And we felt like the battle we've been trying to fight, to push for, is to make game more appeal as an artistic form, has been set back because of so many new players just came in. And I look at the history when other medium was seriously respected as you know, a form of art. There's a turning point. You know, for animations, for example, before Snow White, Disney was making all kinds of cartoons, and at the time, animators are referred as cartoonists and Looney Tune artists. You know, they are seen not as art; they are like for kids, right? And once Snow White came out, the target audience suddenly shifted from just kids to both the parents and the kids, all ages. And from that point on, people start to recognize hand-drawn animation more like a form of art. And the same history kind of repeats to digital, like computer-generated images for animations. Pixar also made many shorts in SIGGRAPH. I've seen many of them. People, including Disney and Studio Ghibli, all my favorite animators, say, oh, computer can never capture the artistic expression of the human hands. But after Toy Story, that impression changes, because when everybody can be emotionally touched, a part of their humanity was moved by the medium, then they see it as art form. And so today with games, we have lots of games. We have games for a whole family to enjoy together for fun. And we have all kinds of devices that has games on it. There's games for children. There's games for parents, mom and dad. There are games that connects all the children together after school. There are games connect all the adults together after work. But there is not a game that is all ages. Like, I have not been able to find a game I can play with my wife and my kids together. And I think we're just so close to there. So after Journey, we really wanted to make a game that is emotionally accessible to people of all ages and genders. And it has to be, 4-quadrant. That's like how Disney described their animations. But PlayStation at the time is a majority male platform. And we realized if we stay on the PlayStation, on the console, at maximum we can only hit that little slice of the pink pie. And it won't change the society's view of games. And so we made the leap to say, all right, let's try to make the game accessible emotionally, but also from the hardware platform side. Can we make a game that everybody can play? And so that's how we started Sky. So from Journey to Sky, it took us 7 years to make, which is insane. Like 3 years is already so crashing, and 7 years, I don't even have the words to describe that. And we're shifting from a console platform to leading with a mobile platform. We're changing from 2-player to MMO. We're changing from hardcore gaming audience to suddenly people of all ages. Many of them never played the games. When we make Journey, there's no chat. It's pretty safe. There's no harassment. No harassment in Journey either. But now we have a complete open online community that could have toxic behaviors if people can chat. And so it's a lot of challenges that took a long time. But we believe we're trying to build a world that could represent, truthfully capturing the bright side of humanity. Compassion and generosity is the emotion we're trying to create. And these are some of the fan arts. I like to look at players' fan arts because they usually capture what they remember the most from the game. And in Sky, the fan art is never about NPC stories. The fan art is always about the connection, the bonding, the friendships, the moment of compassion, the moment of altruism. And I'm really, moved by these art. But the game itself is essentially an online, a big social chat room where you can chat, you can hold hands with people, you can high five, you can give a hug, you can dance with people, you can send them letters, leave notes, and play music together. It's a pretty boilerplate description of the game. But at the same time, I want to say Sky is also the most socially engaging online game. I'm sure some games have piggybacking, but nobody bothered to make piggybacking really deep. And so we also have the UGC content where you can play instruments. We actually have the whole list sets of instruments that you can go really jam with friends. The most surprising thing about Sky is that I didn't realize, including Journey, by the way, the majority of players who really like Journey and Sky are women. This just was never a thing if you come to GDC, or if you go to E3, you would never know that. My coworker told me they had a journey fan gathering in Japan. Actually, more than half of the people who showed up are women. Certainly, Sky today is over 70% of the active players are women. And worldwide, there's over 260 million install of Sky. And that is just a number that nobody in the studio have ever imagined when we make a game like this. The other surprise is we try to make the game emotionally accessible to people of all ages, and we actually have people of all ages playing. And here's a photo of a family with 3 generations playing Sky together. And out of all the messages I find, this one touches me the most because this is a father who doesn't play video game, but he was playing the game because of his daughter, and he was moved by the game and cried. And he wanted to thank us for making the experience. And I find out this guy works at Pixar, and he's like a Pixar tech lead. That's extra bonus for me. It's just like, you know, these people are hard to move. So, but on the other hand, among the community, these are the 2 things I find quite proud. The first one is, you know, most of us who made Sky, we're introverts, so we don't like hang out with people. So when we go make online games, we want to make sure it's actually friendly for introverts. And the second part is they told us that our community on Discord is the most wholesome, according to the community. But yeah, and that says a lot about how we manage to design to avoid what you would expect from a typical online gaming community. So I'm going to just share some quick lessons, that notes we take, things that worked out and things that didn't work out with you. That's really why you're here, right? So, okay, first, very important one, just remember, the players are not born toxic. You know, and unintentional design can potentially nudge our players towards toxic behaviors, but they were never born toxic. So, number one, our behaviors are shaped by our environment. I'm sure everybody have heard of Stanford prison experiment. Just to break it down very simple, in Stanford, a psychologist wants to test if it's the system, the institution like of prison that's pushing the police to be abusive, or it's just purely because of the people. And so they recruited the same group of college students with the same background and given them roles of prisoners and guards. And they let them stay in the same facility for, you know, over a month. Initially, every college student was finding this really fun. It's a really fun role-playing game, right? It's like a LARP. But over time, they start to, you know, behave just like the real prison, where abuse start to happen. And people start to break down mentally, and people calling for quitting. They are all promised lots of dollars if they stay through the whole thing, but people eventually quit. They couldn't stay in this anymore. And the takeaway from that research is the professor said, you know, the role that the people have in a situation has a significant effect on their behavior, and it's even much bigger than the innate personality. You know, innate personality is a weaker influence than the external situation. And without accountability, many people will do evil if given power. But, you know, I'm a game designer. I'm skeptical of everything. And I think the evil thing is wrong. Human will just do what humans do, which is they will seek whatever the maximum feedback in whatever system they're playing. And that's what they did in the prison. So second, players are newborn babies in the digital world. Just think about that. No matter how old you are, if you're going to a new country, if you're going to a cyberspace, you have to relearn everything about the social ethics of the society. So in Journey, we had this situation where, you know, like many online games, there's no collision between people because there's latency. If you're blocked by somebody, it's a really terrible experience. we are just a bunch of optimists. So we thought, we want people to collaborate, right? Like there's a very good collaboration mechanics of you can push someone up and then they can pull you up. So with two people, you can overcome a barrier that nobody can overcome by themselves. And if they could get reward from that, it would bond them together. It's a typical co-op design thinking. What happens is once we add the collision, the people are not using it to help each other, but instead they want to push each other into extremely maximum feedback. And so this happened even in our own internal playtest. My CTO was killing me and was dancing around me rather than saving me right away, because I'm going to be more agitated that way, right? So he can hear me yelling at him over the office, but that's fun for him. And so we were like, okay, guys, this is a game about helping people. It's about letting people have emotional connections. Let's not just kill each other like in other games. So we tried all kinds of ways. Like we implement a world, trying to kind of condition our players' moral behavior through storytelling. Like the world has a story about people helping each other, and the main story shows people supporting each other. Like we did this in Sky as well, but none of these things, conditioning, don't work. They're babies, so even if you tell them they're supposed to behave nicely, they are still seeking for the feedback. And we see this happen not just between our developers. The tester also developed these toxic behaviors in our game. And for quite a while, I was really thinking, are we really born evil? And so one day, I ran into a child psychologist. I was complaining about these playtests to her. And she just said, oh, you're describing the behavior of a baby. The baby will seek maximum feedback to reinforce their social behaviors, similar to a dog. I don't know if you guys ever raised a puppy. They have these teeny shark teeth that's really sharp, right? So if they bite you, you feel the pain, but they can't really hurt you. You're like, why do they grow this type of teeth? So if they bite hard enough, their siblings is going to bark back, right? So their teeth is teaching them how hard to bite for social interactions. So then you would say, okay, well, maybe if the gamers are kids, let's just give them positive feedback for what they're doing good and giving them negative feedback for what is bad. The problem with babies is that sometimes they don't interpret negative feedback as negative, and they always find that being a positive. Because, yeah, my parents are yelling at me, that's new, that's very big sounds, I like that. And this happens on the internet all the time, and so what we learned from the psychologist is that if you want a baby to stop doing the bad things, instead of giving them negative feedback, you should try to give them no feedback. And that's a very simple rule, but you can apply that to all kinds of design in the online community. Okay, third, sometimes you have bad moral behavior that developed in your community. Don't worry, you can minimize it through design. So in Journey, in the early days, we had a simple design, those unintentional design, right? In video games, there's resources. If you have resources, you can use that to fly. So that makes you like the resource. There's nothing wrong about that. Every game has this. But when you have two people, they both like the resource, and one person takes the resource and fly, and the other person doesn't have it, these people are thieves. Or worst case situation, they are robbery, right? And during the early days of Journey, people just said, like, why are you making a multiplayer game? Online community is so toxic. We just want to play the game alone. Or give me a single player mode. That's like the most frequent feedback we get from testers. We said, no, we want you to actually connect with each other emotionally. And they were like, no. So we try to change the situation. Like, we don't want thieves to happen in the game, in the interaction. So we made it so that if you fly, the resource you use will come back, and it will drop right underneath you. So technically, you're not stealing anybody's money. And the other person can use the resource to fly as well. But they still hate each other. What we discovered is the time it took for someone to pick up a resource and go all the way to a new location the time it invested was then stolen by the other player, right? And they're still unhappy even though the resource is still there, right? They thought time is also a resource. So it's becoming very hard to design a game where people don't think each other as thieves. And so what we changed in Journey is like, okay, what if there's just unlimited resources everywhere you go, and you can load up your pocket with resources, right? And then in that situation, nobody hates each other. It's like, oh, you're a fellow bank robber. We're all here robbing that ATM. What a nice, shared interest, right? And so people both can fly with lots of resources. They're happy with each other. It's just that one switch, right? You start to change the behavior of how people see each other. And so in Journey, eventually we removed the collision, not because we can't, but because we want. So there's no feedback for pushing people off the cliff. But at the same time, we create a new feedback where if the people are close, their warmth is charging each other. It's like they're giving each other resources. And that made the player actually really enjoys hanging out with each other because they are getting free money from each other's pocket, right? Why wouldn't you love someone who can give you money, right? And both you can fly. And oh, you like to fly? I like to fly. If I fly, I'm close to you. And this makes player actually feel more comfortable to travel together. Yeah, so from like, I want to play alone, these people are thieves, to, oh, I can't, I'm going to wait for my friends to catch up. The only change is just the environment. They're the same people who's playing the game. So I just want to use this example to show you that it's possible to minimize the toxic behaviors if you see them happening in your games. Work on the design. Okay, the second important lesson is that, Spider-Man says great power comes with great responsibility, right? Well, why would you have great power if you haven't earned it? You should give people power only after they have earned the power. And we need to fight toxicity with barriers. Okay, so what is this? So number one, I think we all would agree that we have the rights to not be pushed with untrusted content, right? Like we all have the rights to not to see or not to hear if the content is terrible for us. But that's not the case. That's not the status quo of our online game. User-generated content usually can be disruptive. In the good case, they're funny, and the bad case, they're hurtful. So in Journey, we have no user-generated content, but just the position of the player. But in a typical online game, you have very smart user IDs. I don't know why gamers like to do that, but it gives you these weird feelings, right, when you read them. And for online games, there's the public chat. And usually it has nothing to do with your game, and usually take you out of the game. And the worst situation, you hear somebody using the voice chat, then you really want to run away from this game. And so what we did is we were like, why are these content pushed to the player? We just want people to share a moment. They don't need to see these content, and that's huge distractions. So with Journey, we try to keep everything clean. We only want to have a human to interact with another human, that they coexist and they share an emotional, roller coaster ride. Like they don't need to have these content being pushed to each other. And so because of the naughty names that people have created in the PlayStation, we actually have to delay the display of the PlayStation ID until the end of the game when the entire emotional experience is finished. Then we show them the player ID, and you can imagine if you see them initially, the funky bottoms, right? Like, who is this guy, the funky bottoms in the middle of the desert? I don't want to hang out with this guy, right? It would completely ruin the opportunity to connect. So in Sky, we go even more extreme. We basically are really concerned. It's a game played worldwide, of all ages. And I personally have experienced, racism, sexism, even age is being discriminated I'm 40 years old. The kids doesn't want to know I'm a great uncle, right? So we have to hide all those identities first. We want people to be judged by each other as just a human being. So in Sky, if you have not have a meaningful connection with people, you just appear as a shadow. And the second thing is, names become a necessity in this game because there's so many players. You won't be able to tell them apart if you don't give them a name. In all the other games, you name yourself, right? And that's usually where the bad apple comes. So we decide to switch it, redesign the game where you give names to the other player. And in that way, no one can really force you to read anything you don't want to see, right? And that worked quite well for us. At least we have never heard any report on harassment because someone has a strange name in Sky. The second thing is social firearms needs a permit. Like if you want to run a shotgun, you want to carry a shotgun, you need to get a permit in the real life, right? So why would you give shotguns to babies, in the online game? So what is a shotgun? Social shotgun is the megaphone, right? You can speak in the public channel, and you can say something outrageous, and because you're anonymous, you can get away from it. So early on in Sky, we had these talking benches. Like we don't want people to talk all the time because that's just too dangerous. So we have these very short, 1 to 2 minute bench. You can sit down and have a brief conversation just to see if you like them or not. And then players start to request. They want to say, hey, the bench is too small. Only 2 people can talk. Can you give us 8-player benches? So we put it in the lobby. And then what happened is we have the eggplant boy. He becomes very famous because he always hang out in the social lobby, and just when people are all chatting, on the 8-person seat, he would jump on there and just use many eggplants. And so many people was upset about this kid because they think the eggplant means something. And so eventually, one of our players went to talk to the kid and befriended the kid and tell her that's not a cool behavior, so he stopped, right? But during that time, he really had a lot of fun doing it because to him, he has total invisibility. Nobody knows his name, and he can just spam people with, fun, nasty messages. And so eventually, we had to dial back the public chat benches to just one-on-one. We don't want to give the feedback to a baby, of the potential to spam 7 people at the same time. If you are only sitting down next to someone who's sitting on the bench, you're very less likely to get a positive feedback because that person could be AFK. That person could be a worse person who can talk back to you. So it becomes much less toxic. We are no longer getting reports of eggplant boys. And we have the inspiration from Dark Souls where people leave helpful messages. So we want to reinforce that behavior. We want our players to leave messages to help each other, just like Dark Souls. The initial results are terrible. It's just like any online forum. You will find many smart text that is either funny or very disruptive. So essentially, if you unfilter the content could be very nasty, right? And creatively nasty on purpose because all the kids are looking for maximum feedback. So how do we control these behaviors is we have to ask our player that, if they want to have this power to push content to a lot of people, they have to earn their permit, right? Just like if you want to own a gun, you have to earn a permit. So how do we do that? So I was talking to a different child psychologist, and I asked her, so how do you correct these problematic kids' behavior in school? Because they would do all kinds of programs with kids. And I was asking her, what's the most effective? And she said, the most effective program is you rally up the struggling kids who have really terrible social behaviors, they're bullies, or they just don't get along with anybody. You rally them up, you sit them together like a 12-step program. You kind of ask them to talk about what they enjoy. And very quickly, they will find connections. Oh, you like that? I like that too, right? And then they will bond with each other. And once they build trust, once they find a community and they have friendships, they stop behaving terrible because they suddenly have somebody they care about, and they don't want to appear terrible in front of the people they care about. So really just, to help people is about integrating them back into the community rather than leaving them to be the loner. And so we implement this feature where if you make a content, your best friend would know that content is from you. The moment we implement that content, we see a huge wave on Discord that people are going online to delete their messages because suddenly their friends could tell these smart messages from their best friend. So they clean it up in a day. And now the messages we see in Sky are mostly interesting and many of them inspiring. And so the rule we applied for the messages is initially when your friend made a content, there's 3 phases. The first phase is you made the content, and only your close friends can see it. And you would need 3 endorsements from your close friend for this content to be qualified to be pushed to the public. And once it's in the public, if there's 3 people who find this content offensive or harassing, and they can downvote, and then the content will disappear. And that is basically a community regulation, or I would say it's like a social engineered friends regulation. And that ended up working really, really well. And 3, I want to talk about how can we protect the player with high barriers. In this case, we are talking about mutual consents. So chat moderation, like I'm quoting my coworker Tim here, he said, chat moderation is important, but ultimately it's the ambulance at the bottom of the cliff. You want to prevent the people from jumping, not just collecting a wounded person. So in Sky, we try to implement the consent at every step of the social interactions, from the early stage of people just chatting with each other without knowing each other, right? So in this case, you have a video here. People were talking. And you don't even know what they look like. You're not judging them based on the appearance. You can just have a people-to-people conversation. And even to review the appearance, you have to agree to cross the candles to review them. So this really protects you from having, this weird typecasting or bias towards each other. And you really have to earn the friendship, like in real life. Like sometimes, like you like somebody, but they don't like you, right? So here's the kind of a real vivid situation when a player finally get the friendship. They are so thankful. They feel like they've earned it. And so they actually care about the relationship. And then that's just the beginning of forming the friendship. But then every step going forward, building the trust and unlock more intimate abilities like hugging, holding hands, and a free chat, they all require mutual consent. So if you're being an annoying person or harassing person, then the other person doesn't have to take it. So early on, if you have not unlocked chat, all the messages are masked. You really have to work your way up to build the trust, and eventually to really unlock chatting. That's very kind of counterintuitive for an online game, because everybody was thinking, oh yeah, this is online, so you should have chat right away. You should be able to invite your friends and start to have very close chat. But we are designing it for introverts. Introverts don't have many friends, so it's more likely they are going to make new friends. And so we have to kind of build it a very safe environment so you can slowly dial up, whether you want to hear someone else talking or not. And in Sky, we created these different tiers of interactions that is, become more intimate over time. But many people would never go to the second or third tier. Yeah, so first tier is chat, second tier is warp. Like warp could be seen as stalking, so like that's ability you really want to think if you want to give to a friend or not. Then there's like a little bit like play fight, that things can be interpreted as aggressive, but will be totally acceptable for close friends, will all come in a much higher trust level. So the higher the entry barrier is, the nicer the people behave socially when they finally enter it. I don't know why, that's just humanity, I think. All right, the third lesson is, once you build a relationship, you want to protect the authenticity of the relationship. Gamification on relationship tend to erode trust and turn relationship into toxic behaviors. Number one is you don't want to mix relationship with rewards. You know, it's like friends with benefits or with profits. That's usually don't go well. And internally, we are talking about designers. Like the players should be motivated to spend time with one another because it feels good, not because they have to or because they have something to unlock. In the early days, we were trying all kinds of mechanics. We're trying to nudging the player to become friends with each other. What happened is, in the rainforest, we have the rain that's harmful for your health. And so we have umbrellas. We designed a puzzle where if two friends come, they can pray at the shrine. They will get the umbrella for both players. We thought that's such a great idea because it would encourage friends to visit together. But what happened is, two strangers will come to the shrine. They both want the umbrella. So they added each other. They become friends right there. They get the umbrella, and they break apart. And the next morning, they log online. Who is this person? They forgot. They forgot this person even existed. And then they told me they feel disgusted looking at their friend list, not knowing who are these people. And that was like one of the rare things. What everybody from the plate has told me, like, we don't want this. And you know, the gifts should stay as a pure gift. This is another thing we made a mistake. So in the early days, we want to encourage the gifting. So we want to show player, how to say, like you can potentially earn hearts by befriending someone else. So heart gift was a byproduct, or like it's like a bonus. If you level up your relationship, you get more hearts. But people love heart as a resources, so they want to farm hearts. So we start to see the heart bagger epidemic. So anywhere, it's like, you know, go to any of the train stations or the airport, outside there will be people waiting for you. Hey, you want to be friends? I'm really cute. Let's be friends. And you will just be hoggled by these cute little chibi characters, because usually they get more interest, and they just want to level up relationship to riff the heart out of you. And that was getting so bad, like everywhere people is trying to be cute and attractive, but once they get the heart, they disappear. So we have to like remove it, right? A gift has to be a pure gift. There's no additional benefits there. And the second thing is, don't tutorialize your relationship with free gifts. You know, like many games, online games, like to tutorialize. They will give you free currencies, and then you will apply it. You know, you go through the drill and understand how the system works. But in our early prototype, the player will get a free gift every day. They can give out to other people to see what happens. And what happened is, even though the gift is free, the player expectation is not free. If you are giving someone a free gift every day, the day you don't give them the gift, they were like, hey, where's my gift? It's supposed to be free. You're supposed to give to me, right? And it becomes actually toxic. That's just the most weird thing. It's like if you have, let's say, a homeless person right on the street, and you give them a dollar every Sunday. And on the next Sunday you didn't give the dollar, they will come to harass you, say like, where's my dollar? That's just human nature somehow, but it actually backfired for our community. And our player really disliked those people who's like harassing them for free gifts. So eventually we shifted back. Instead of trying to teach social systems by offering player free currencies to apply on real players, we decide to offer them currencies they can apply on the NPC. So at least NPC don't harass you. And they can still teach you the same systems without making the community toxic. And another one I want to say is like, you need darkness to show light. When we first jumped into Sky, we were very, we were very progressive. You know, people hate pay to win, so we want to do the opposite of pay to win, right? We noticed like if you pay in a pay to win game, a lot of times you don't want to tell people that you spend lots of money just to beat other people, because you know you're cheating. Like there's a little bit of shame about buying things for yourself. But we find out that if you pay it for the people you love, usually they're very proud to tell you, hey, I took my family to Disneyland this weekend, right? Or you know, I have this big diamond ring for my you know, fiancé or whatever, right? It's like people are usually not shameful if it's about giving to someone they care about. So initially we were like, okay, let's go 100%. Everything has to be altruistic and everything has to be giving. So we implement a society where you cannot buy anything. And the only thing you can get is if someone gives you something. And that society runs like a paradise for quite a while. I was very happy. Look at how all these people giving each other. But very quickly, I started to find out everybody's like doing the, you scratch my back, I will scratch yours. Hey, I gifted you yesterday, where's my gift? You're supposed to give it back to me. And lots of people are actually very toxic about their expectation was not met by the other person. And that was quite eye-opening when we tried it, because we were like, we can control the system, we can change the feedback, but humanity doesn't work like a machine, they are human. And so we realized that if you don't have a system where you actually can buy something for your self-interest, then when someone gives you a gift, you are second-guessing. Your question is that gift even is genuine, or are they just simply expecting you to give back to them something? So eventually, when we launched the game, we had to including things that people can buy for themselves, just so that when they choose to buy it for a friend, the friend could trust that is a genuine gift. And that was a very big change when we were doing the design. Yeah, so what we want is a genuine gift, not just gifting economy. And so today in Sky, you can buy things for yourself. You can also buy things for your friends. When we did the season pass, we did a slight discount. So if you buy it for your friends, it's cheaper. And it certainly made a lot of people decide to buy the season pass together. So 40% of the season pass was bought and sent as gifts with the event content. That's 100% the same price. You can buy it for yourself. You can buy it for your friend. And 22% of the content people purchase are actually for others. So to me, that is a genuine gift to each other. And one last thing I want to talk about is genuine human connections could save lives. So when we work on Journey, we realize vulnerability really leads to human compassion. This is a very social behavior of many social animals. It's a survival instinct. When you are weak and small, you have to rely on working with each other to survive, right? So when the predator, they go around, they're strong and powerful. They usually hang out alone. But sometimes even the big cats, they would work together. And that's only when their prey is even more strong, right? And it's the feeling of risk and the feeling of smallness makes us bond with each other. And the very emotion of awe and vulnerability is what made us human, because we are such a weak animal if we are alone. And that makes us really want to belong, right? These days, one of the biggest depression we feel in the society is the loneliness, that we don't feel we belong to something that's meaningful. And a lot of the friendships and connections are not genuine. It's the surface level things. And just the yearning to belong to something bigger is the most human feeling of them all. And when you don't have this feeling of vulnerability and humble smallness, when you feel really big, we go back to the gamer behavior, right? You're the space marine, you're the Superman, you're the hero that can change the world. And they stop thinking about connecting with others. And so if we want to make an online community less toxic, we have to rethink about gaming experience. We have to reduce the empowerment online. You know, instead of making games where you just go around killing things, make things much stronger you just can't kill. Instead of going around looting for treasures and resources or finding monsters, you go around running to other people. And people are more important than gold coins. In a battlefield, it's very hard to focus on people because the sound, the distraction. So, you know, in order for games where people can connect, you have to reduce the noise. You have to reduce the number of people. You have to put them in an environment they feel small and, you know, a little bit vulnerable. And suddenly, if you see another person, you're like, oh my God, there's another person, right? Instead of walking on Times Square and just people all pass by you and you're just trying to ignore all of them. So for Journey, we really tested this idea of creating the world that evoke a sense of awe and vulnerability. And the result shows. It creates empathy and compassion between the players. These are the fan arts, again, of the memorable moments, what they had in the game, is when they supported each other, is when they leave a message for each other. And once you're creating this compassionate moment, a genuine human connection will form. And that leads to inclusive and supportive community. So what is a genuine human connection? It's a vulnerable interactions between two people that they feel heard, seen, and known, and valued after the communication. And afterwards, they feel better about themselves and feel better about the world. I'm just going to summarize this genuine human connection. It's, you know, it's one of the few things I really believe is generally good for human. And, you know, when we created Sky, one of the emotions I really want to evoke is that we are not alone. And I think most of the artists who make art, they want to connect with people through their art. And in this process, if the art connects with them, there's an overwhelming sense of gratitude between the artist and the viewer. And I think this overwhelming gratitude I felt is also inspiring, you know, our creation, and we want to give it back to the players. It's a very healthy cycle of reciprocation. When we launched Sky in 2019, we got a letter within a few months. A 67-year-old grandma from Hawaii who never played games was cried and moved by the game, and she told us, you know, she doesn't want to be alone anymore, and she's still a person of love. And, you know, that's the same age as my mother-in-law, who also came from Hawaii. So it really, and eventually my mother-in-law also became a Sky player and find friendships. It's these stories that really makes me feel happy that working on the games that we make. There's this manga, a Japanese very talented manga artist. She make usually funny mangas, but one day she made this manga for us. She said she actually tried to hurt herself in the real life multiple times. She was really thinking about throwing her life away. But when she discovered Sky, she felt the warmth from many friends she made in the Sky community that for the current moment that she chose to live. And she's only 20 years old. I really don't understand why a talented artist, you know, at her golden age would think about throwing her life away. Yeah. And during the Ukraine and Russian war, we were really concerned because we have players from both nations. And when they run into each other, instead of having a fight in the game, they actually really supported each other. They see each other as victims of the war, and they still stay contacted today. And I want to show you just one last thing. This is from the concert of Aurora. When there's 4,000 people can view this, the concert together. But when we give this tool to our player, when they have the control to tell each other what to do, together they were able to perform something that's just really beautiful and moving. They decide to come together without any of the problem. We didn't tell people to do this, but they decide to do it together with each other. Instead of competing or fighting, they're here to create art. I've just never thought our gaming community could be more amazing. So to conclude, how do you keep your online interaction positive? First, just remember, players are not born toxic. We are all capable to being a good citizen and treat each other with compassion. So really just focusing on your design to highlight that bright part of humanity. Number two, don't give players social powers. No shotguns for babies, right? They have to earn their trust. And that's how the real society works, and I don't understand why online games don't do that. And number three, if you build a relationship, don't ruin the authenticity with gameplay mechanics. Gamification don't work with relationships. It needs to be genuine. And try to build genuine human connections in your community. It will save lives. And we are game designers. We're thinking about how to change people's behavior in our games, but I don't see why we couldn't think about how real-world institutions can be designed to promote human values rather than destroy them. And if you can make it work in the virtual world, I don't see why it wouldn't work in the real life. So TGC, is a company that started 18 years ago, trying to make games to tell heartwarming stories for all ages. But today we have to change it because it's an online game now, right? We have to inspire humans to connect worldwide. Thank you, and we are also hiring. Yeah.
Chicos, en el mensaje fijado del chat salen las indicaciones de cómo meditar. Tienen que entrar a la aldea viaria y meditar. De ahí dirigirse al ojo de Edén. Pensé que me iba a dejar poner la mesa. No me deja poner nada. No sé si es por hechizo o algo. El concierto que van a dar ahora no es de Aurora, es un comunitario. Es otro tipo de concierto. Bueno, creo que están un poquito atrasados, pero se supone que en este concierto comunitario va a estar tocando Snow Prim, That Sky Fox, Sky Solar, Leo y Jamcum. No sé qué tipo de música nos irán a preparar. Yo vi una foto, bueno, así como que los personajes se hacen grandes y empiezan a tocar, o algo así vi. Así que esperemos nomás. Ahí están llegando. Estamos preparando a todo el mundo para el espectáculo. Es muy emocionante verlos a todos. Ya. ¿Cómo lo siguen? qué no me deja? Chicos, el concierto de Aurora se repite cada 8 horas y pueden entrar a la página SkyClock y ahí van a ver el siguiente horario para ir a verla. están ahí acosando a los músicos. Es que no se escucha si nos alejamos tampoco, po. Ya, chiquillos, ese ha sido el concierto comunitario. Gracias a los que estuvieron acompañándome hasta el final. Mientras se están despidiendo, yo también me despido, así que descansen lo que puedan. Ya es hora de dormir, es tarde. Bueno, ya es de madrugada, amaneciendo ya, pero ya se me cierran los ojos. Gracias nuevamente por la compañía y bueno, nos vemos en otro contenido. Más ratito les subo las ubicaciones de los tickets, ¿vale? Espero mucho que hayan disfrutado de todo y sobre este SkyFest. Un abrazo a cada uno de ustedes. Descansen, tomen agüita, no se desvelen. Y eso, un abrazo para todos ustedes.